Welcome to Small Town Times. I'm Dave Mendicino, assisting Dave Dale this morning, editor. Today we have with us Brent Kalinowski.
That's good.
Community safety and well-being planner with the City of North Bay. He's been tasked with the job of helping facilitate the implementation of the community safety and well-being plan. So we're going to talk to him today about some different topics within that plan. Maybe let's start by giving us a little bit of your background and how you came to be to the city and what you've been charged with your role as.
Okay. Well, originally, I do have a background in policing. I've been in North Bay for 10 years, but originally from Prince Albert, Saskatchewan. Policed there for a number of years. And while we were in the career, or while I was in the career, near the end of it became very disinterested, frustrated, and recognizing that we weren't near the end, we weren't fixing a lot of different things. I had a conversation with my chief one day, and he said he would like me to solve things before they happened. At the time, I was in criminal investigations. And that really stuck with me for a long time. We started to look at different solutions instead of waiting for the bad things to happen, like, crime or violent crime. And then started to recognize that in order for me to help facilitate some of that change or solutions for people, I couldn't just do that myself in my career, but I needed others in education, social services, addictions. And it just started a conversation within our group on how maybe we can start to make some changes. That led to looking at other areas of the country and world, actually, of who were doing different things, and they were in Scotland. So what they were doing in Glasgow, Scotland, was all of those agencies were getting together daily and talking about situations of risk or things that needed to be attended to, but it was a collaborative. And we were quite inspired by that and brought it home, partnered with our partners. And long story short, we were hit the ground running, and we started connecting services to people that needed them, but collaboratively. So before somebody was being charged criminally, if they were on the radar, we got some partners together and addressed that with those individuals. That really led to a number of different roles within the provincial government in Saskatchewan. That spread right across Canada, that type of idea and that collaborative theme, and it did in Ontario as well. So back in 2013, I retired from policing after 27 years, 6 months, and 22 days in policing. Not that I was counting, but I was. And embarked on this new career of working with community agencies and community partners to mitigate risk sooner than later and then start collaborating.
Which brought you to, so the City of North Bay, the last term of council, mandated through the Police Services Act to develop a community safety and well-being plan, which was done. And there was enough of a buy-in from council at the time to, okay, we've got this plan. It's a great plan. It's a fluid plan. It can be changed as you go on. But we need to hire someone that past council felt pretty strongly, and as do this council, there's a buy-in from this council to hire someone to facilitate it, not implement it, but facilitate it, because you're going into the service network to assist with that. And how's that going? Like maybe an update on that?
Yeah, no, that's very accurate as well. I like how you highlighted facilitate, because that's a real key component. But you started on something as well that the provincial government mandated that to municipalities a couple of years ago now, and while we were still doing, risk-driven work with situation tables or other things throughout the province and the country, there was that missing piece of people on the ground or human services connecting services to people when and where they can, but there was always a run-in against managers or system leaders on the time you were spending because you had other things to do and just not getting it. So there was that disconnect. So when we had some more conversations with the provincial government, that started to lead to the idea of community safety well-being as a whole, and then it was mandated to municipalities. So when the opportunity came up to to take this role on here in North Bay, I literally jumped at it. I thought, this is what I'm doing right across the country. North Bay is my home now. So I care deeply about this community and wanted to contribute. But facilitating is the right word. Initially, it was advertised as a coordinator, but that tends to get people to think I'm commanding people or working people. And it's a sensitive position to be within the city of North Bay or working at the municipality and then working with other partners in health, the hospital, addictions, and not telling them how to do their business, but how can we do this together with all the agencies.
So the number one thing that struck me last term when I reading the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan is the number one issue that needs to be dealt with is the service network itself. And this past week or so, we started seeing some results from the operational review, the city's operational review. That could be another podcast in itself with the 10 recommendations coming out of there. But one of the recommendations was looking at the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan and making adjustments as needed. And just to give you an idea of the task at hand, this is right from the operational review. Word for word, there's 76 planning tables and committees which comprise approximately 145 programs and services and over 100 community strategies, presently presenting a significant challenge in coordinating service delivery. Now, anybody looks at those numbers and says, yeah. And there's the people that are working in these facilities and agencies, they're awesome people. Dedicated people. They didn't create this. They inherited this. And so your task at hand is certainly with all the other providers. It's certainly, it's a big one. But Dave, where do you stand on all this? What do you think?
Well, I'm kind of an outsider looking in on a lot of it because I've seen over the years various agencies try to handle something on their own and they can't because their mandates don't cover certain things. There's not an overlap with another partner, and I'm looking forward to how this could be facilitated to streamline focus on fixing things because it's all in place. I know a lot of people say it's an industry that needs to be blown up, right? It's people thinking they're just people at the trough. Making their careers on something that they can't fix, and it's not effective. But I'm never about throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Like you have a lot of people with a lot of experience. They know the community. They're in positions. They're trained well. It's better to facilitate that and get it all organized in the right direction than to try to recreate it. Right, and we've seen that sometimes in the health, where they every election they end up changing how they want to move the deck chairs around, and it just causes a lot of chaos. So I'm looking forward to seeing some of the results that you might be able to pull out of this. So what's the major challenge as far as trying to get something moving forward in the right direction?
Well, if we're just going to stay on service coordination just for the moment, and the numbers that you highlighted, Dave, the 76, that came from the Community Safety Wellbeing Plan research that was done by DSAB probably in 2020, 2019. So there's a little change to those numbers. But I want to add as well, it's not unique just to North Bay. Maybe we're a little bit higher. I'm not quite sure, but I've worked right across Canada in a number of different communities, and that's kind of a common situation that's developed, creating silos and other small pockets, duplication, and things like that. So the whole idea of streamlining that, or not blowing it up, but change. And change can be a real scary word sometimes because we're used to doing what we're doing. And when the government asked us to get out of the silos, collaborate, and work together, as you pointed out, there's a number of very dedicated and passionate human service providers here with limitations because of mandates, because of silos within government. So that's one of the challenges that's starting to be addressed now with provincial government, is starting to organize provincial government silos to respond to some of these needs, because we'll have to meet in the middle on that. And since some of those 76 also include some very small, I wouldn't even call them committees or groups, but when I went through the list, there's one, for instance, for a review committee from the city on some applications. So there's a lot of those in there, but there is quite a number, and it's the idea of how can we get that better adjusted. Talking to a number of our systems leaders, nobody wants to go to 20 meetings a week. That's kind of how it became. COVID didn't help that because then it just made us meet online. You were more available. But there's a real flavor right now to meet with purpose and start to flesh out those meetings that maybe aren't as purposeful or actionable, and how can we be more efficient in our time in relation to the goals we want to achieve together.
What's the agenda for your meeting tomorrow?
Meeting tomorrow?
Next week.
Or next week, okay.
Yeah,
for the ad hoc, I believe we're talking about, where we were extended again for a year, and for the listeners, that was the Community Safety Wellbeing Committee of Council ad hoc. We'll be looking at the terms of reference again. It's been a year since that was activated, so to review that. We're going to be discussing needle discards. The city has a bin on McIntyre, and just have a discussion around, is that the best place for it? Can it be somewhere else? What other ideas can we have in regards to that? We're going to talk about the POST, our peer outreach and security team. We wrapped that up. That was a pilot that started last summer, just finished in January. And talk about what that's going to look like going forward, having security and outreach downtown. And update on the Community Safety Wellbeing Plan. It's a standing item.
The downtown security, what is it going to look like going forward?
Going forward, it's going to be there again. It's going to look a little different. The pilot included an outreach worker and a security guard. We wanted to give that a try to give better visibility of security in the downtown area, but not just that hard component, but support and outreach as well. So we married those two together. It worked as good as it could have. Both security and outreach have let us know that, but it could be better. It did provide some limitations with having security there. One day they'd be working in one arena where maybe they'd be more authoritative towards an individual, and then the next day they're on outreach, and that kind of caused a conflict, right? So the reason for outreach, or the goal of outreach, is to establish some communication, connection, trust, and they can do that a lot quicker without security. There is no safety issues for outreach workers from their point of view. So they'll be going out themselves in a team of two in baby blue jackets. True Self provides that service, and they'll be in the downtown area and available from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. throughout the summer.
So the ad hoc committee extended another year. I mean, I was glad to see it established in the first place. To me, it showed council's commitment to the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan, to your efforts. It's comprised. It's a city committee comprised of staff and council members. How are you ensuring that you're including the community partners in that? Like, you're taking that information and meeting with them. Maybe give us an update on that.
Yeah, for sure. So our ad hoc committee at council meets every couple of months. And we also have a community safety wellbeing advisory group that consists of, I think, 17 systems leaders throughout the community of North Bay. And we meet every couple of months, quarterly. So there's always that exchange of information from one meeting to the next. Councillor Mala also sits on both committees, including myself. So there's that opportunity to give updates back and forth to each of those groups.
Okay. In Northern Pines, Northern Pines is in use on a fairly frequent basis because of the low barrier portion of it. But I'd like to combine this question into two parts. Number one, Northern Pines was initially, when we established Northern Pines last term of DSAB, there was 60 beds, transitional supportive housing beds. That's how the discussions happened. So taking away the low barrier part of it right now, because it's the one causing the issue, in my opinion. Give us an update on how the transitional supportive housing beds at Northern Pines are working. Are we seeing success stories?
Yeah, a number of them. Anytime, let's talk about first the situation of the majority of people who are unhoused and vulnerable. Just a simple roof and a door to lock isn't going to help them entirely. The majority of a lot of those folks need a number of different things at the same time. There's different factors at play, and that includes that support opportunity. And that's what's amazing about Northern Pines is they have that support there 24 hours a day. So whether that's addiction support, counseling support, mental health. They just developed a partnership with North Bay Regional Health Center, more on the mental health side. They'll be in-house. So that's providing people with not only a home, which is that first component, a house first, and then working on the issues after that. So they're able to help guide them and support them through transition. So from the low barrier, they will go to a next level, which is cohabitative living. So a number of suites, one kitchen kind of thing, and a couple of staff supporting that. And then from there, as they progress, either through their own work or support they're receiving, to their own apartment on the third floor. They just opened those up. I think they have, they're just 3 short of being full, but the elevator to get to that floor was the issue, and they're still looking for repairs. But it's that type of structure, and we're very lucky to have that here in North Bay, that is needed and that can help support people who are vulnerable, who have issues that they're dealing with, but while they have a residence, they can get that support and start to become more successful. Employment, get other jobs, and then the goal is to move out into either market rent or supported market rent with a little less supervision.
So these individuals are there getting the help they need and helping transition back into a normal everyday life, I guess.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's awesome. That's what the facility was originally developed for. The low barrier part, during COVID and crisis situation, that's where we had to go to establish a low barrier because our numbers were growing, and that was really the quickest solution. But the low barrier shelter part of it at that facility, at that location, in my opinion, needs to move. And where does it go? It transitions maybe into the next question on the missing piece, which just came out, the homeless hub, or the connection center is kind of the word you used when we chatted last week. Maybe talk about, and there's a price tag to it now, $2.6 million. It is the missing piece. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, it's that missing, in my opinion, the missing piece in the housing continuum of that first entry into support or guidance from agencies, or even to help build that trust to be able to ask for that or receive that help and support. So right now, the warming center just closed a couple of weeks ago, and people who are unhoused and vulnerable have no place to go. If you can imagine yourself being homeless or just not having anywhere to go, where would you be? And for a lot of our communities, downtown or the center of the city is that hotspot that many of our residents are attracted to, and that's where the resources are, that's where the shopping is, and that's often where a lot of the supports are. So that's where a lot of our unhoused and vulnerable people will congregate as well to be in that area. What's missing is some place for them to go or something to do during the day to help develop that trust, make those connections, and then be guided into whatever supports they needed. And maybe from there it addresses some of the situation that they're dealing with, and then how that could help graduate to Northern Pines or to other supported living, or just identifying what supports are needed and how we can work to get there.
I mean, you look at, everyone's move them along. Well, move them along, and the question, well, where do you move them along? Where do you want us to take them? And when we talk about that missing piece, it is a missing piece. If you had all the agencies, whether it was the DSAB, the police, CMHA, the DIA, any agency that comes across these individuals, where you brought them to the center. I learned a long time ago that how do you get these individuals off the street? Repetition. You mentioned it. Daily interaction, where it might take an individual, you might have to bring them to this connection center 100 times or 50 times, whatever the number is. But one day they are eventually going to see the light because they've had these services. When they go there, they've had these individuals working with them. They're able to get a meal. They're able to get warm. They're able to, it's all under one. Sitting on DSAB last term, you know, we'd hear presentations on we need a warming center. Well, a gathering place. We need some place where they can, a low barrier shelter. You're dealing with the same individuals all under one facility. Just makes so much sense with the ultimate goal to get them from there to transition into Northern Pines.
Yeah. You know, it's a number of these individuals are not very trusting of the systems,
Right.
and rightfully so. We've treated them poorly, or just not addressed it or dealt with. Our community often would treat these individuals poorly because either we don't understand and we're scared of it, or we just don't want to see it. So you have that distrust. So it makes it very difficult then for someone just to offer services and they just take it. There has to be that relationship building and just a renewal of that trust again. A place like a connection center or a building like that, you could start to do that. And as you said, it may take a couple of times with some place where they feel safe, secure, and they're able to get the help that they need and address some of the issues they're facing and then move along. But again, collaboratively, not just with addictions, because more often than not, addictions is related to homelessness, is related to the mental health, is related to crime sometimes. So that's what identifies a need for having a multi-collaborative partnership to be able to address each of those pockets of concern simultaneously to help individuals get through. Our systems are really good at latching on to people, especially the criminal system or the justice. Once we put our claws into people, it's hard to get out. So we need that agency and those folks involved to be able to help guide them and get them to where they need to go.
So this missing piece, and you know, it was called a homeless hub in the homelessness study that DSAB did and paid for. It's DSAB that needs to quarterback this. I mean, homelessness it's their responsibility. The other agencies are going to assist with, their expertise, but ultimately it's DSAB that needs to quarterback this. And if you started looking at, they can't, 2.6 million, that's a big number, but I'm already hearing a little bit of, well, we don't have the money for that. We can't afford not to do it at this point in time. And think about how much further ahead we would be as a community. Brent said it, that we're not unique in the problems, but if we took this action, and how do you get to 2.6 million? Well, look at DSAB's budget right now. What are they paying between what they're paying for the low barrier shelter? They are paying, taxpayers paying, low barrier shelter, hotels for overflow. That number is north of $1 million. So, I mean, that's a pretty good start to the 2.6.
Well, not to be flippant about it, it's just that's how much it costs to do a cricket field, actually. That's what they earmarked to do a cricket field. So
yeah,
it seems like a lot of money. And I understand that they have all these, DSAB has all these expenses that they need to do. It's like buying a car or renting it, and they're paying a lot of money for motel rooms at a high price and it's not solving anything. It's just a stopgap measure, right? Like,
look at it's a stopgap measure, and again, it's that's a pretty good. When you compare it to what else council has on its plate.
Mm-hmm. And the homelessness and the issues with DSAB, and I know they're in a state of flux. There's some their funding is they have to reorganize with the provincial government with the funding that's going to go to DSAB. I believe they're trying to figure out what they can do with these other programs that they have. So they have a lot on their plate, and this is like a good action item. I have to look a little bit more at the details and how that's going to work. But when you were talking about homeless people, like, fair to say that there's all kinds of different kinds of homeless people. They're not homogeneous. Like, they're not all the same. Some aren't dealing with the same issues as others. And they're at different stages of homelessness, right? Like, there's people that are quite capable of setting up a campsite for themselves, staying near the bush, knowing their situation, staying away. They don't want to be around. But basically, they may be more of an economic situation than anything. If you don't have $4,000 for first and last on an apartment these days, I would have trouble getting that together. And then you have to have an income that can cover that before you can find a place, if you can find a place. So there's people that could be helped a little bit. There's others that are here for other reasons, and there's a criminal element that likes to be not under roof. Tell me a little bit about the different types of homelessness and the different stages of it.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I think no matter where they come from or where they're at, either within their homelessness or their journey, they all get painted with the same brush, and that ranges from somebody that suffers from addictions, mental health, experienced trauma as a child, for instance. Those are just repeated over and over again for a lot of our vulnerable. Situations weren't addressed and things just spiral, no family, and then here they are. But there's also people who have, and more currently, are just living day to day or check to check. Not only COVID hit everybody hard, but now the economics are compounding on top of that. So people are living check to check, unable to afford a lot of things, and that includes rent. You have a lot of landlords now that are perhaps maybe want to renovate or sell or get into the Airbnb business, which is profitable, and then kick people out or evict them at the end of the lease. And then you're stuck looking for a rental place, and you can't find that because current prices are really, really high. We have a lot of people living in cars as a result. We have people who are just trying to find their way. A colleague talked to me yesterday about an individual he ran across, very lucid, had a divorce, didn't have a whole lot to begin with, but didn't have a place to stay, so he was just looking for a place to stay. So it comes from all sides. People suffering from some serious mental health situations and are just left to their own devices to try and address it on their own. When we closed our hospital a number of years ago, I think we did throw the baby out with the bathwater with that. We wanted everything to go to community and gave more autonomy to people, and that's really good. And I understand some of the reasoning to some of those decisions. But some of our folks and some people that are out there really need that support and are struggling to survive on their own. When their mental health is so bad, they don't know if they should wear boots, or they're being victimized repeatedly, or they're digging through garbage. You mentioned criminality. A lot of those situations are as a result of a lot of people's mental health. Sometimes it's just to survive. That there's all kinds of different factors. I understand what that looks like from the other side as well. But with a connection center, or just the collaboration piece entirely, is the only way we're going to start to get through this. And by the way, nobody's got the answer yet, or just here it is, this is how to do it. There's a number of different programs that have shown some real nice success. Supported transitional housing is one of them. Housing First, which takes that another step further yet, is another one. Some really big strides in Finland, for instance, and some other locations. But it's all about our local will to do it, and our local collaborative, and where we all have our minds at the same time. And right off the top, we talked about different mandates, talking about different personalities. So really, that's part of my role, is to help our group to understand what the common problem is, and that it's not just my problem, or it's not just yours, but it's all of ours, and how can we contribute our little piece here and there. Education is at the table, and you're like, well, what does education have to do with homelessness? They have a lot of kids in their classrooms for thousands of hours a year. They see situations within the schools before anybody does. Opportunity to intervene earlier, look at those things. Education. Right now, education is offering mental health courses. I think it's for 7 and 8s. Stand to be corrected on that, but they just piloted that this January, all 4 school boards. So what a great idea to be able to have those discussions in school about real things, real mental health that's affecting a lot of our folks in the community.
Anything that is progressive and upstream to prevent people or help people not get to the point where they're have an addiction and mental illness and can't care for themselves at all. So you want to do everything you can possibly, right?
Yeah, and we've become accustomed and really good at reacting.
Yeah.
I mean, our hospital is one of the best at it. Emergency room, there's an emergency, they'll react, and you'll be good after that, right? Police react for the most part. Agencies react, and if nobody's coming to my door as an addictions counselor, I'm not going out there. That's just how the systems were set up to react. I have a problem, I make the call, I go, and I get the service. But there's a lot of disconnects in there now for individuals and people, and all of these folks are starting to surface in our vulnerable community, now in our homeless, because systems have failed them. And it's up to us now then to start to respond and meet people where they're at, not to be cliche, but it's very true on how they're at and reach out to them. So that starts with our outreach and the trust, and then starting to just initiate some of these activities of support again.
This is a little bit outside. It's related, but it's outside. At what point is somebody beyond helping, beyond the point of return? You see some of these people. They've lost all their teeth. They're don't look like they can function, what to do with those people that are like, can they be saved? Do you know?
If they're still breathing, there's an opportunity there, and I've seen examples of a number of those situations that, if you saw the before and after, you'd question if that's real or not.
I wonder if it would be good to have those examples. I know it'd be, people who recover from that sometimes are used as poster people, but we need those poster people, I think, to show that it's possible, right? Because a lot of the gut reactions from people in the street when you see them is like community members are like, there's no help in this guy, period. Right? They give up. And to know that it's possible to take somebody from the near death to getting their lives back together.
Well, and it really all boils down to, what's happened to this individual. And I think if we can be a little more compassionate, or at least take a pause to reflect on what that person went through, and just, put ourselves in that situation. I spoke earlier about whether it's that individual that was divorced and had no place to go. If that continues on, he can't afford rent. He's now in this subculture trying to find his way, gets offered some drugs maybe or something else. And let's talk about that for a moment. Drugs right now are a much different beast than they were 10 years ago, 20 years ago. That's rapidly changed. And back to the mental health and the Mental Health Act, I don't think it understood that, how different the drugs are nowadays and how that contributes now to mental health.
Addicts with these type of new drugs, their brains are rewired. They have mental health issues, and they should be treated with as such. It's from the people I've talked to.
Well, for both, right? It's not one or the other, which is, a number of years ago, that was the ping pong. It was, I have mental health. Can you help me? No, you have to cure your addictions first. Well, I have addictions. Can you help me? Well, no, you have a mental health problem. Go see your doctor. It has to be done simultaneously now and collaboratively, which we're getting better at and are doing just that.
Oh, yeah. That's good.
It's interesting that we hear it all the time. Some of these problems started escalating when they closed the old psych hospital, and we have an opportunity now, because in my opinion, Northern Pines is like a 60-bed mental health and addiction hospital. It's there. It's like we've walked back a decision that was made in the past that wasn't working. We just really need to focus on that missing piece right now. And the price tag is the price tag. I haven't reviewed the report in full, but whatever that $2.6 million entails. And again, DSAB are going to have to spearhead this. They've got a significant dollar amount already in their budget for low barrier and overflow. I mean, it's not the other agencies when they come to the table. It's not there's not so much increasing budgets; it's reallocating. Look at what the hospital did. The hospital transferred their mental health services, some of them, to Northern Pines to assist with those individuals. And they didn't increase their budget. They just reallocated right?
Mm-hmm.
And now they're working out of the Northern Pines instead of out of the hospital. So
it's working smarter, right?
Yeah.
It's and being where you're needed, kind of thing, and that certainly fits that. You know, I did mention the hospital closing, but that wasn't the only or the reason why we're in, you know, the situation we are. It helped contribute that for sure. COVID certainly didn't help our agencies, and everybody didn't know how to react to that. We were supposed to maintain distance from people, and if I'm a frontline service provider, how do I do that if I'm dealing with somebody's addictions or mental health? So that was paused for a while. So a lot of our vulnerable were really left in a lurch while everybody else tried to figure that out. So that was part of the problem as well. But the hospital as well has 200 plus mental health beds there. So there are beds there. It's just how can we use them more efficiently, or some of the services, like you pointed out, and now at Northern Pines, could they be part of a connection center, just where the need is, and all of those will certainly be part of the discussion going forward.
Again, that connection center, I can't emphasize it enough. The more and more I think about it, I've been thinking about this for quite a while, and when I started seeing this information coming out, it's like, yeah, that's what needs to be done. These individuals need someplace to go. They need someplace to keep warm. They need someplace to sleep. They need someplace to eat. And when you get in there for those three, and you get the professionals that are there that can assist them with some of their trauma or some of their issues, and again, it might take an individual, because they got to gain your trust, and it might take 50 or 60 or 100 times before that person, as he or she visits the center or is brought there. And one day it's going to click in for them. It will. I mean, and I'm going to lead into my one plug for the reinstatement of the HCAP program, the Healthy Community Ambassador Program, because that program in the downtown, boots to the ground, mental health and addiction workers, assisting these individuals, daily interaction, they've got the numbers. They were seeing results one by one, and it wasn't a quick process, but one by one, they were taking them off the street and getting them help they need.
What's the difference between that one and the one you were talking about?
So when we initiated POST, there was a gap of services. HCAP was working 8 to 4, Monday to Friday, and had for some time, but there was a gap of service after hours and weekends. So that's why we initiated the pilot with the outreach to work those after hours and on weekends, just to fill in those gaps. And then over time, it kind of went through the summer, so their times changed a little bit, and there was a little bit of overlap, but there was just more boots on the ground. But that's two agencies doing the same type of work.
But this is where, again, you talk about, I'm not saying in this instance it was necessarily a silo, but you've got two agencies, and they're providing the same service that's needed, and the city had to expand it to because the other agency, there was only a certain amount of funding to go around, but it needs to be expanded to cover the daytime and the nighttime, because interacting with these individuals, and they're in the downtown right now, and the more you interact with them, the better chance you have of getting them the help they need.
Well, and resources at your fingertips too, or levers to pull. And if you're connecting with individuals just out on the street, it would be your first goal to make that connection. But it'd be nice to be able to bring them somewhere, or that they have somewhere to go if it's raining, or they just don't want to be outside or in somebody's doorstep anymore, which they don't, but they're just surviving. So where can we take them? So that's that missing piece, in my view, is that connection center, a place where people can shower, use the washroom, get some water, establish a relationship, or just, relax and try to gather your thoughts enough to get lucid and maybe be more receptive to a conversation about further supports.
And while they're there, whether they're there half an hour, 90 minutes, the workers are there, the professionals are there, slowly getting,
building relationships,
building the relationship. Exactly.
Now, one thing that's always perplexed me, I guess, is how the things are spread out, right? The different food banks that people visit, the gathering place for meals, other places for a warming center, right? I see these people trucking all over the place. And like the energy that they spend trying to just survive and pushing these carts and just trying to get the stuff, but it makes them walk everywhere. Maybe it's good exercise, I don't know. But it seems like it's uncoordinated.
Having one center, a connection center, is, I don't want to see another fall where we're scrambling around for a warming center for the winter.
Mm-hmm.
Like we need a permanent location. And
where would be a good location, by the way?
Oh God, I don't know. That's the good question.
Yeah.
There was a good location. I know the city, for whatever reason, had to the offer's not on the table anymore. But when you think about where are these individuals going right now during the day? Well, a lot of them are going to the gathering place. So there was a building beside there that was for that potentially that could have worked, but understand logistics maybe didn't work out. But wherever it is, the gathering place somehow has to be part of it. And they're having their own struggles right now. And, the partners need to come to the table to ensure that, how they're part of the solution.
Yeah, I would think that the gathering place would need to be very much involved with Homeless Hub, right? Being part of it. That's like, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, no, there'd be a number of community agencies that would be the natural fit to be involved in those discussions, including, a location that is accessible, I think is the most important.
That's the hard thing, eh?
But
so when
sorry, just to finish that shot, accessible, but yet also in a location that isn't detrimental or appears detrimental to others as well. If the NIMBYism, or nobody wants it in their area, but somewhere that it's somewhere in between.
It's got to be in the vicinity of the...
You know what I think it would be a good place? Is because it looks like the OPP might be trying to move from their spot at the end of Gormanville.
Yeah, I don't know if
on
that's...
the edge of town?
Well... I don't know if that's
I know.
That's a lot of walking.
It's a lot of walking, but if everything's in one spot, I don't know.
I think you'll find that a number of individuals then wouldn't go. And so we'll still be in the situation where we're at, where people are either walking around or they're just trying to, survive out the day wherever they are, because it's not accessible. So that's like making having a real nice seniors facility, a mile out of town. How do our seniors get there?
Yeah. It's got to be in the central core somewhere without being right in the downtown. I mean, if that makes sense.
But again, it's it's something that all the partners are going to have to discuss and
for sure,
and figure out what is the best, and have some community consultations. And
well, it'd be interesting because I know any further out in this end of Pinewood, you got a lot of people that wouldn't really appreciate that being the place. West Ferris doesn't want to be the place where everybody ends up. So it should be interesting.
It has to be in the central core. And could you imagine if we got to a point, because up until now it's been homeless people, get them out of the central, get them out of the downtown, move them. Could you imagine if we flipped the whole thing and we're able to establish this connection center and we're successful to a point where they're in the downtown, on the periphery of the downtown core, this location maybe, and it's actually working to a point where the homelessness issue has subsided and we're transferring people to transitional supportive beds. And
I think we're forgetting a number of our human services are in the downtown core, where individuals, whether they're vulnerable individuals or other clients, are already visiting, whether that's parole, whether that's addictions, they're all in the downtown core. So this is just an extension of that, or would be, where it will end up at the end of it. But I think that's important to keep in mind. Services are there already, but how can we make it better if it's in one location, but also accessible to other locations as well?
Well, we've covered a lot of ground here. Are there any additional things that you wanted to talk about?
No, I think we covered a lot. It's just it's a it's a work in progress. Obviously, it's fluid. Our advisory group is still meeting and looking at not only reviewing the existing plan that a number of items have been achieved, but what do we need to do for the future? Things like the Icelandic model, adverse childhood experiences, positive parenting, things that are further down the road and looking further upstream, things like that. And then what can we do in the now, whether that's the Connection Center, a youth center, different things are on the table to do that. And just to end with, it's a frustrating line of work to be in, to say that off the cuff. But at the end of the day, I'm working with a real number of passionate and very committed partners that are also frustrated. But we're getting together and we're starting to find answers for some of these things. And one of my lowest days over the last couple of years, things just weren't going my way, and just for whatever reason, just felt pretty down. And talked to an individual, gave me some advice, came from an elder actually. And the saying was, if you walk into a bush, if it takes you 10 days to walk into a bush, it's going to take you 10 days to walk out. So that was really grounding for me, because a lot of these problems that are existing right now didn't just happen yesterday. They've happened or started to happen and accumulated over a long period of time. So we have to come to that understanding that it's going to take that time to be able to change the things that we're doing right now, understanding that maybe they're not working as good as they could, and start to make some of those changes and work towards the solution.
I mean, it's just to end from my chair, this homelessness study that was done by DSAB, it was comprised with feedback from a lot of the professionals and agencies in the city. So there is a roadmap now, again. A lot of it reiterates what the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan said. A lot of it will reiterate what the Operational Review said about the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan. It's all tied in. The missing piece is this Connection Center, and for the professionals and council members that have to look at this number, $2.6 million. It looks like a big price tag, but we're almost at a point where we can't afford not to do it, and one way or another. And with Brent's help, I mean, with the leadership of the DSAB board. One way or another, they need to ensure that this missing piece is implemented, because it's critical right now. And hopefully over the next year or so, or maybe sooner, I don't know, we can find a location and we can get everybody at the table and we can make this happen.
Well, I think they got the right guy for the job there, Brent.
Thank you.
You impressed me with your background in policing, but your vision and journey to get at the solutions and to work with people to make it work. So, going to be pulling for you. Hope it all works out. I really like what you said about your elder's advice there, because it's very true. There's no quick fixes when it's a long-term problem, right? So, right on.
Yeah.
Well, this has been really good. Hope we can have you on again sometime.
Sure.
Talk about some progress or other issues. It helps people see things in another light, rather than just the visions that they see as they're going around town, and they probably have given up hope on the bureaucrats solving it, right? So if you can facilitate that, I think people can have a little bit of hope. Right on. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Right on.
Thank you. Thanks for coming, Brent.
My pleasure.